You're watching ChillyBoy Productions. I'm Larry ChillyBoy Chilson, and this is our latest Pride Series movie review for The Miseducation of Cameron Post. And joining me today to discuss this film, I am joined by the casual critic himself, Jed. Hi, Jed.
Hey, Larry, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much for coming on and discussing this film with me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm just really excited to be here.
This is actually one of the more recent films in this series. It takes place back in 1993 after a teenager named Cameron is caught kissing a girl by her boyfriend of the time, which leads to her getting sent off to conversion therapy camp. So, this was your first time watching this film, is that correct?
Yeah, I heard about it before, a couple years ago, back in 2018 and everything, but I never really gave much thought to it. But now that I've actually seen it, I have to say I'm really surprised by what this film has to say, not only about how it feels to be just a human being in general. I think what people tend to forget when approaching like LGBT relationships is that we're really all one and the same, like, and we may feel things differently than other people might. That's okay, because like I don't see a reason why we should not celebrate our differences. Like that should be celebrated, because that's really what makes us human. That's what all makes each of us special.
Yeah, this was actually my first time revisiting the film. I did see it in theaters back when it was released, and I remembered enjoying it then. I think I actually enjoyed it a little bit more this viewing. Have you ever seen the film But I'm a Cheerleader from the 90s?
I heard about it. Again, I'm not a really big LGBT cinema guy, but I have heard of it. Like, I think she gets sent away to conversion therapy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one starring Natasha Lyonne and
Okay.
RuPaul and Clea Duvall. So a bunch of staples in the queer community are in that one. It's like the fun, campy version of this film. Obviously, they take center around a conversion therapy, as does Boy Erased, which is another recent film takes place around conversion therapy.
Is
Um,
there like a major difference between was it Cameron Post and that one? Because I've heard a lot about there's like a lot of gay conversion therapy movies coming out lately, and like I just want to know if there's like a specific difference between the two, especially since they were released in the same year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so this one I actually like Cameron Post more than I like Boy Erased. I think it feels more human. The Boy Erased film is just a lot more kind of stale and sanitized. It was directed by a straight male, and I
Right.
feel like you can feel it, like there's no affection in a lot of the portrayal. So that's my main thing with Boy Erased. That's why I think this is akin to But I'm a Cheerleader. It's directed by a bisexual woman, written and directed by a bisexual woman. And although it's not campy like But I'm a Cheerleader, I think they tackle the issue in a lot of similar ways. It's a kind of a same setting too, like they're out in the woods, they're like really secluded. But this film stars Chloe Grace Moretz and Sasha Lane, kind of at the start points of her career before she really started to take off a little bit more. And honestly, I think this is one of Chloe's best performances. I don't know. How did you feel about Chloe Grace Moretz here?
At first, it was a little hard to tell what she was going for. Like, there wasn't a whole lot to stand out, but once you get towards the end of the movie, you realize that like the first half is her trying to, relax herself into the situation of being in this reform therapy thing and just going with the flow. But when you really get to the end, it's like you can't hide your true feelings.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I thought was so amazing about it. I have liked her in other things, like in the Kick-Ass movies and stuff. honestly, I think this is probably one of her best performances.
Yeah, I think that layering of who she is as a person is really great. She does a great job. You can tell she's really her form of protecting herself. I think the early stages of the film are to just basically not care, basically kind of be aloof is her navigation tool. And she meets these other kids who are obviously not having it, and that's the Sasha Lane character, and they're kind of just there because they were forced to go. They're very different from everyone else that she's kind of encountered in this place. One, they're not white, which is kind of already
Right.
puts them aside because I think everybody else around there looked pretty white. And then two, they just I don't know, they have a different vibe. They're a little bit more rebellious. They're like, we have to be here, so we're gonna go with the flow so that we don't get, called out, but we're not really buying into this mess. So unlike her roommate, who is really trying to buy into the concept, the idea that she can change and, that this place will reform her by way of God. Even the kid who goes through a very traumatic experience near the end of the film that kind of propels Chloe's character to ultimately run away, he seemed to really be trying to buy into it as well until he basically kind of comes to this moment. And I think it's a really powerful moment just in general that no matter how much you try, no matter how much you deny yourself, and you are still who you are. And two, trying to appease other people like your father is never going to be enough for
Well,
them.
I mean,
You are
there's
who
this
you are.
like as someone who grew up like in the Christian faith a lot and has heard a lot of those things for years. Like there's this one specific session when he was quoting the Bible verse at the end
Mm-hmm.
about how
Yeah.
my weakness makes me stronger, and I think we don't acknowledge that as much because we see the things that make us different. Like we see those as struggles, but those can actually you know, make us into better people. It can help other people that feel the same way that we do. So I just thought that was, kind of brilliant in the end, especially because a lot of Christianity talks about how, like, there's one specific way or perspective of looking at each verse. In some ways, you can turn it around and use it to grow as a person,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was really impactful. And as to the other kids that she meets, I really liked their dynamic together. It was just felt like this really charming coming of age story for a film that has such a dark subject matter. Like I thought it was really unique how they utilized the humor in it
Mm-hmm.
because if you look at a film like Boy Erased, you could probably see that it's just a straight drama from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
This is more so about the perspective of Cameron Post herself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's one criticism I do have about that, it's probably because, we don't get as much focus on a lot of the other characters as I would have liked. But that is because we're viewing the events through her perspective. The horrors and the inside of like one of these reform therapy places from somebody who's actually like new to it. But from a directing standpoint, it feels very unique because I feel like most of these movies of this nature, like they only show part of the story and facts about what actually happens, but we don't actually see the events and what happens to the kids that go to these places. I can't tell you how many times my heart broke throughout this movie. Like there's this one scene, I think her mom finds this breeder's tape. That's like one of the things that makes her unique, and it's like you're really going to take that away. I know it seems so trivial, but it really just breaks your heart. And then when you get towards the end, yeah, when she's talking about her girlfriend Coley to all the people in the reform therapy place, essentially tricked her into believing I've taken this good person and I've tricked them into believing something that they don't want to believe. But what they don't end up hearing, because the teacher and the supervisors don't let them hear this, it's that they don't see how important Chloe was to Cameron. There's a lot of dream sequences throughout this movie, and one of the most impactful things about it is when they kind of cross-cut it between her dreams and the repeated flashlights that keep coming in her room. So it's like what the life that she wants and the happy life that she had is kind of being interrupted by just the sad fact of reality.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really unique, and yet it's really heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that I wish we had the time or the ability to explore a little bit more with some of these other characters. There's moments of real interest that peak up, like when we're dealing with Adam. And not only is he in here for like conversion therapy, but it's like religious conversion as well because he's Native American. Obviously, he has very different beliefs than just straight up Christianity. And even his father, I guess, was like converted, but he just had so much by way of backstory that would have been really interesting to cross-reference. Jane, I don't think we really learn like anything about Jane. She doesn't really open up much.
Well, I mean, there's one scene, I think, Cameron looking at the icebergs,
yeah.
And Jane like eventually tells her that I didn't have a choice to come here, and that's what I found, really impactful about this movie because, yeah, I think a lot of people that are not in the LGBT lifestyle, like they think there's only like one way. It's like either my way or there's no way at all. Really, it's about letting people have the choice to be who they are. But we can love them for who they are, like whether or not we agree with them.
And I think the emotional and psychological damage is actually really highlighted well through the Reverend Rick, who is one of like the counselors here. He has a moment near the end of the film, obviously after this trauma takes place with one of the students committing self-harm, and he just kind of has a breakdown with Cameron. And it really opens your eyes to this is really Jennifer Ely's who she delight.
Man, like Chloe Grace Moretz is great, but man, she almost steals the entire show. Like honestly,
so
like she is so terrifying in this movie.
I love her in everything I ever see her in, and she's great here.
Just her line delivery. There's no homosexuality. There's only like the sin in it, and just and it really breaks your heart to see somebody's identity kind of being erased like this just because someone doesn't believe the same thing as you.
She compares him to drug addicts. She said you wouldn't throw a parade for drug addicts,
right? But like again, it's there's a difference between doing deadly, hard, hardcore drugs and stuff versus just being in the LGBT community. And another thing I found impactful is that even from the first scene, like one of the first scenes, when Cameron's mom finds out that she's been having this relationship with Coley, like she breaks down like it's the end of the world. And I found that really impactful as well because a lot of parents who send their kids to reform therapy, they really view it as, my child is not who I raised them to be, and they're different from what I expected. But like, you can't take away someone else's choice. Like, I just feel like that's really, that's a really fundamental part of this movie for me.
Back to that scene with Reverend Rick when he has this breakdown, you could really see that as much as he's trying to go along with all of this and be a part of this reform, what a mental toll it takes on him living the way he's living.
When they leave him, like there's like a brief pause, like right before it cuts to them leaving the conversion therapy center, and it's like them all saying bye Rick, and then but like you don't think much of it at first because it's them moving on with their lives. The more you think about it, it really becomes, oh shoot, Rick is stuck here and he's got nobody to help him.
Yeah. You start off the film not really thinking you're going to feel anything for him, this like counselor. And I
Right.
think they do a really good job of just kind of showing what a victim he is of this entire situation. And just unfortunately, he's helping to perpetuate that victimhood to younger generations. But especially in 1993, it was certainly not what it is today when we were in the same world of acceptance by any means. And I mean, in most ways, we still have a long way to go because conversion therapies are still legal. You can still put children into conversion therapy here in 2022. It's not nationally outlawed by any means. So that's why I think these films have really started sprouting up as of recent again, because this is really just to expose what an inhumane practice this is for you to be, forcing upon your children. It just needs to end. This should not be a practice that we continue on.
Well, what I found really ironic about what you just said is like, especially within the whole conversion therapy aspect, like how it's still legal. There are moments in this movie where you can tell that the people in Cameron's church, like they want to love these kids, they want to help them, but they're doing it in the wrong way. At the end of the day, if that choice isn't rooted in like loving that person, like it really doesn't matter.
And Erin is an interesting character as well. She's like the epitome of really trying, wanting to buy into the system, wanting to be a part of it, but who she is finds its way to the surface. She has a moment of like breakdown at part of this film, and it's another way to showcase like as much as you can fight it, as much as people will hide it to get along into whatever brainwashed lifestyle you try to put them through. At your core, you still are who you are. Like you are you, and this is just how you were born. No matter what conversion therapy or brainwash type of therapy you try to put people through, they're still who they are, just now living a lie. And I think they do a good job of showcasing that throughout the film, really.
Well, in terms of the issue of brainwashing, another thing I found really impactful about going back to Aaron's character, there's a moment. I think it's when Cameron is discussing the icebergs about all the
Mm-hmm.
students and stuff. Like, there's a moment where you see Aaron. She can't hang out with her father because it would be too masculine, like to watch football with him, and it's like just something as simple as that. Like, is there really anything wrong with that?
But yeah, overall, I think it's a really well handled film. As you said, it balances in that small doses of humor and levity. It has those kind of coming of age moments throughout so that it's not just this onslaught of depression from start to finish. You are
Right.
watching both Cameron and all her friends kind of learn and grow and come into their own a little bit as we move throughout. But did you have any final thoughts when it comes to the miseducation of Cameron Post?
There are certain conversations in this movie that I think it's towards the second act when she's having her therapy sessions. Like all those scenes where they're just talking about, you know, Christianity and saying having the faith and what all that means to them.
Yeah.
Like all of those moments feel so raw and real. None of them feel fake. They all feel so impactful. And that's really what this movie ultimately is. It is a raw and real portrayal of what we actually force people who are different from us in the LGBT community to go through. And it's really sad. The last thing I do want to mention, though,
Mm-hmm.
it's really the ending of the movie that I found the most impactful. Like they are, once they leave Rick and the Reform Therapy Center, like you can tell that they're going on their own separate journey, but they're going to make it through because they're together.
And it definitely harkens back to an old homage, I guess, of the queer communities of chosen families. So many people got exiled from their own family or ostracized from the people that they knew and loved, but you get to kind of form your own chosen family. And I think the end of this film kind of showcases this little group of folks forming that chosen family type of bond as they step out on their own. They don't have anywhere to go, and it's now about just having each other. But that was our review for the Miseducation of Cameron Post. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so that you are always up to date on all of my latest videos, including each and every one of my Pride Month series of reviews. Also, make sure that you are following Jed across the social media platforms. Jed, do you want to let them know where they can find you?
Yes, I would definitely like to. You can find me on the Casual Critic on Twitter. That's at Jed Elias. Or you can find me on my Facebook group. It's Digital Watch a Movie Universe. We have weekly film discussions there. I post about free movie screenings and stuff sometimes. It's a really collective, fun film group. So, come on by if you're a film fan.
Perfect. And of course, I will have the links in the description on where you can find and follow the Casual Critic. And of course, we want to hear from you. Have you seen the Miseducation of Cameron Post? If you have, let us know your thoughts either in the comment section down below, or you can hit both of us up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.